They promise you the view of a lifetime, but they don't mention the radiation, the legal waivers, or the debris field waiting to shred your capsule. Billionaires sell space tourism as a luxury joyride, but the fine print reads more like a controlled gamble with your life. Unlike NASA astronauts, tourists sign away their rights under informed consent laws that admit you might die, and no one is really responsible. What if the price of a ticket to space isn't just money, but your survival? The space tourism industry exploded in 2021. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, and Elon Musk's SpaceX all began selling tickets to civilians. No astronaut training required, no military background necessary. Just sign the waiver and pay the price. Virgin Galactic charged $450,000 per seat. Blue Origin's tickets went for $28 million. SpaceX offered orbital flights at $55 million each. By 2024, over 2,000 people had joined waiting lists, and companies projected tens of thousands of flights per year by 2030. The marketing was flawless. Stunning views of Earth, weightlessness, the adventure of a lifetime. But beneath the promotional videos and celebrity endorsements, three critical problems were already emerging. Problems the industry didn't want regulators or customers to examine too closely. Problem number one, the regulatory black hole. In 2004, Congress passed the Commercial Space Launch Amendments Act. It was designed to encourage the new space tourism industry by creating what they called a learning period. The FAA was prohibited from regulating passenger safety for commercial spaceflight. Companies could launch tourists with almost no federal oversight. The law assumed the industry would develop its own safety standards through trial and error. But here's the catch. That learning period was supposed to be temporary. It was extended in 2012, then again in 2015, and again in 2023. For nearly 2 decades, space tourism companies have operated in a regulatory vacuum. No mandatory safety inspections, no enforced design standards, no required emergency protocols. Compare that to commercial aviation, where every component, every procedure, every pilot action is regulated by thousands of pages of FAA rules developed over a century of flight. Space tourism? Passengers sign informed consent waivers acknowledging they could die, and companies face virtually no consequences if they do. Problem number two, the health gamble. Space tourism companies market their flights as safe adventures, but they rarely discuss the medical realities. Cosmic radiation exposure during suborbital flights is 100 times higher than at ground level. On orbital missions lasting several days, tourists absorb radiation equivalent to several chest X-rays, with no medical screening requirements to determine if their bodies can handle it. Then there's the physical stress. During launch, passengers experience forces up to 4 times Earth's gravity, compressing their chest and making breathing difficult. Rapid decompression in case of cabin failure would give you less than 15 seconds of useful consciousness. And medical emergencies? There are no doctors on board tourist flights. No emergency medical equipment beyond basic first aid kits. If you have a heart attack at 100 kilometers altitude, you're on your own until the vehicle lands, if it lands. In 2014, Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two broke apart during a test flight, killing 1 pilot. The investigation revealed the spacecraft's safety systems failed to prevent human error. That vehicle had been cleared to carry paying passengers within months. Problem number 3, the debris crisis. Every rocket launch leaves a trail of destruction in Earth's orbit. Spent rocket stages, discarded fuel tanks, fragmented satellite components, all traveling at speeds up to 28,000 kilometers per hour. At those velocities, even a paint chip can punch through metal. A bolt can destroy a spacecraft. Right now, there are over 34,000 pieces of trackable space debris larger than 10 centimeters orbiting Earth. Millions more smaller fragments that we can't track. And space tourism is making it exponentially worse. Between 2021 and 2024, commercial space tourism launches increased debris production by 40%. Each suborbital flight burns through tons of propellant, releasing aluminum oxide particles, carbon dioxide, and water vapor directly into the stratosphere. These emissions don't just pollute, they actively damage the ozone layer that protects Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation. One SpaceX launch produces as much stratospheric pollution as 395 transatlantic flights, and companies are planning thousands of launches per year. The more we launch, the more debris we create. The more debris we create, the higher the collision risk. Scientists call it the Kessler syndrome, a cascading chain reaction where collisions generate more debris, which causes more collisions, until entire orbital zones become unusable death traps. So how do space tourism companies get away with all this? The answer is buried in the paperwork. Before you board a commercial spacecraft, you sign what's called an informed consent waiver. It's dozens of pages of legal language that essentially says, you acknowledge the risks, you accept the consequences, and you agree not to sue if something goes wrong. These waivers are unlike anything in commercial aviation. When you fly on a regular airplane, the airline is legally liable for your safety. They must maintain strict standards, and if negligence causes an accident, they face lawsuits worth hundreds of millions. Space tourism companies: zero liability. The waivers explicitly state that you could suffer serious injury or death from equipment failure, human error, or unforeseeable circumstances, and the company bears no legal responsibility. In 2021, Blue Origin passengers signed agreements acknowledging that rockets can explode, capsules can depressurize, and parachutes can fail. Virgin Galactic's waiver states passengers assume all risks of spaceflight, including risks that the company has not disclosed or cannot anticipate. You're literally signing away your right to hold them accountable for dangers they haven't even told you about. And if you die, your family can't sue. The waiver covers that too. Beyond the immediate dangers to passengers, space tourism poses a growing threat to Earth's atmosphere. A 2022 study published in Earth's Future found that rocket emissions could deplete the ozone layer faster than previously thought. Black carbon particles from rocket fuel accumulate in the stratosphere, where they absorb sunlight and heat the surrounding air by several degrees. This warming disrupts atmospheric circulation patterns and accelerates ozone destruction. The study calculated that if space tourism reaches projected levels, 50,000 flights per year by 2050, it could thin the ozone layer by up to 4% in some regions. That's comparable to the damage caused by chlorofluorocarbons before they were banned in 1987. And unlike CFCs, rocket emissions happen at altitudes where the ozone layer is most vulnerable. The environmental math is brutal. Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two uses a hybrid rocket motor that burns synthetic rubber, releasing massive amounts of black carbon per flight. Blue Origin's New Shepard burns liquid hydrogen, which sounds clean but produces water vapor at altitudes where it acts as a greenhouse gas 100 times more potent than CO2. SpaceX's Falcon rockets burn kerosene-based RP-1 fuel, dumping tons of unburned hydrocarbons and soot directly into the upper atmosphere. Every tourist flight prioritizes luxury entertainment over planetary health. So who actually benefits from space tourism? The answer is simple: billionaires and the companies they own. The average cost of a space tourism ticket ranges from $450,000 to $55 million. That puts it out of reach for 99.9% of humanity. While companies market space tourism as opening space to everyone, the reality is it's the most exclusive club on Earth. Only the ultra-wealthy can afford tickets, and they're the ones profiting from the industry. Richard Branson owns Virgin Galactic. Jeff Bezos owns Blue Origin. Elon Musk owns SpaceX. They sell the dream of democratizing space while building an industry that reinforces wealth inequality on a planetary scale. And here's the darker truth: they're using public resources to do it. SpaceX has received over $15 billion in government contracts from NASA. Blue Origin got $3.4 billion for lunar lander development. These companies use taxpayer money to subsidize their private space tourism ventures, then charge prices only billionaires can afford. Meanwhile, those same tax dollars could fund climate research, disaster relief, or healthcare. Instead, they're financing joyrides for the ultra-rich while the planet burns. Space tourism isn't expanding humanity's reach into the cosmos. It's creating a luxury escape hatch for the wealthy, while everyone else deals with the environmental and economic consequences left behind. So, what happens if space tourism continues on this path? The projections are alarming. Industry forecasts predict 10,000 commercial space flights per year by 2030 and 50,000 by 2050, each launch adding more debris to orbit, each flight depositing more pollution into the stratosphere, each waiver signed eroding what little accountability exists. Scientists warn we're approaching multiple points of no return. The Kessler syndrome threshold, where orbital collisions become self-sustaining and uncontrollable, could be reached within 20 years if debris accumulation continues. The ozone layer damage may become irreversible if black carbon emissions aren't regulated immediately. Some atmospheric researchers estimate we have less than a decade before stratospheric pollution from rockets causes measurable increases in skin cancer rates and agricultural damage from UV radiation. And yet, there's no international framework to stop it. Space tourism operates in a regulatory gap between aviation law and space law. No global authority has jurisdiction. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 never anticipated commercial passenger flights. The FAA can't regulate what happens above 100 kilometers. The United Nations has no enforcement mechanism. Individual countries won't restrict their own space industries because they're competing for market dominance. So, the launches continue. The debris accumulates. The atmosphere degrades. And the billionaires keep selling tickets. Unless something changes, regulations, accountability, international cooperation, we're heading toward a future where space becomes unusable and our atmosphere pays the price for a handful of luxury flights. Space tourism promised us the stars. Instead, it's delivering radiation waivers, orbital debris fields, and atmospheric pollution that could damage the planet for generations. The dark side of space tourism isn't science fiction. It's happening right now. So, what do you think? Should governments regulate this industry before it's too late? Or is space tourism worth the environmental and safety risks? Share your theory in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want more deep dives into the hidden realities behind cutting-edge technology, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned. There's always another story the industry doesn't want you to hear. Until then, keep questioning what they're selling. I'm Orbital Atlas, and I'll see you in the next one.